So last week, I was able to do an IRI with Madison, which is an informal reading inventory. And it's basically a lengthy assessment that breaks down reading into 10 different tests or 5 components, which will be the alphabetic knowledge, concept of words, spelling, word recognition, and oral reading. And so we'll go over each of those really in length. This first page of data that we're looking at is called the summary sheet. And so what I like so much about this is you can see all of the tests we took and the corresponding data. And it's going to really help us to go over and break down each of these different types of assessments. So the first one we did tested her alphabetic knowledge. The first test is the alphabetic recognition portion. And for this one, there was a written list of every single letter in the alphabet in a randomized order. And I had asked Madison to go through and touch each of the letters and say its name. She got 25 out of 26 correct. She had an issue where she missed the letter X, but I'm having a really hard time distinguishing if she had skipped it because she didn't know the letter, or if she had simply was going too fast and maybe lost her spot in the list of words. I'm leaning more towards the latter because she is very knowledgeable with her alphabet. We go over it every day in class, and I've never seen her have an issue. But after we did that one, we moved to a written portion where I read her a list of words, which you can see in that little yellow sticky note at the bottom of the page, and I asked her to write them. She got every single letter correct, but I do think it's interesting how she varies between uppercase and lowercase, and that's something I would like to further look into as we go, because I want to make sure she's fluent in both uppercase and lowercase. But this puts her right on track with where she's supposed to be. It's typical for students at the beginning of first grade to get between a score of 24 to 26. And so she's right at the high end of that spectrum. But I have to tell you, these are even improvements from the data we saw at the beginning of the year when we tested her on letter names. She only scored in the 47th percentile, which is a little below average, but now she's showing fluency in almost every letter, which is really great. So after this, we're going to head to the concept of words, which you can see she scored a total of 12 out of 12 on. And here, I'll pull up what this assessment looked like. It looked just like this. All Maddie could see was this side of the page right here with the sentences. This is my own scoring sheet. So what would happen is I would first read sentence number 1, and Maddie would repeat it and would point to each word. So she would say, Katie is walking in the rain. And I gave her a point for each sentence that she could correctly follow along and read with her finger. And then she got 2 extra points on this side of the sheet right here. And those are, after she would read the sentence, I would go back and say, Maddie, can you point to the word rain? And each time she could correctly point, she got an additional point. So as I said, she got 12 out of 12. You can see she didn't miss anything. This puts her right where she's above, meant to be, and slightly above. The score for the beginning and middle of first grade is an average of 9 to 10. But as you can see, she has no issues on this one. So let's see. After that, we go to spelling, which was a little more intensive. So we actually got to do 2 lists with Madison because she did very well on the first list. So this is the first grade list, and it's very basic words that focus on phonemic awareness patterns. So all of these words are word chunks and word sounds that she should be able to break down, and she did break down, which I was very happy to see. She took the time to sound out each of these words. So she got a 40 out of 40. Each word was worth 4 points based on the quality of spelling. I won't go too much into how it's graded because she did so well on this one, but the average for this word list is actually 27 out of 40 because a lot of students have issues finding those medial sounds as well as the consonant blends at the endings of sounds. So if you look at the word best, an example of the consonant blend would kind of be like the ST, the ST at the end. But, she really excelled in this list, so we introduced her to the second grade word list, which I told her was going to be a little harder, but she told me that she was up for the challenge, which was really exciting. So these have a higher level of difficulty. So she scored a raw score, or just the number correct, was 3 out of 10, which I wouldn't be overly worried about. She did really great because I was able to find some patterns that I think will lead her to be a successful reader. Like I said, she really uses her phonemic awareness skills as a speller, so she would break down every word before even attempting to spell it. And I noticed through this that she also has a very strong orthographic pattern base, which means she's just very comfortable in the spelling rules we already have gone over. So if you look at the very first word right here, chain, she spelled it C-H-A-N-E. And if we pay attention to that last E, the silent E, it goes back to the rule we were learning last week, which was currently, at the front of her mind, which says this silent E tells the vowel to say its name. So she heard the A in ain and just added that silent E, which is very impressive. So I was very happy with what I saw here as far as her being in first grade handling that second grade list. Next, we moved on to word recognition, which looks very overwhelming. But I gave her a list of 90 words, and she had a minute to read them. She was able to read 77 of these words, and she got 75 of them correct. She missed 2, and you can see that they are made and soup. Made, she just mispronounced as me, and soup, she just kind of completely skipped over. But this puts her amazingly over where she needs to be because the data shows that a score of 33 on word recognition at the beginning of first grade leads to successful print processing, and she's at 75. But I think what is also important is that besides just the sheer speed and fluency in which she was reading these words, is her accuracy. She had an accuracy of 97%, which is amazing. And we're actually going to talk about this because a little later. And then from here we moved on to passage reading, which is the major portion of the test. It actually has 4 different levels, which we're going to talk about, starting at pre-primer, which is pre-K, ranging up to the late second grade. And before she could move on to each one, there were minimum scores she had to meet, which are these numbers here in the parentheses. But as you can see, there's not one section where she was even close to meeting those minimums. She was always above and beyond, which allowed us to get through all 4 of the passages. So here, let's find one that... Here's a good example. This is the kindergarten reading passage, the primer. And so what happened first was I would give her her own copy of the text, and I took these notes, as she read. And so as she read, I would mark some of the mistakes. So every time she saw mother, as you can see, she kind of said mom, which is totally fine. It's just something we called substitution. And so I was looking for a bunch of miscues like that, like substitution, skipping a word, repetition. And she really was doing great. Her accuracy never dropped below 98%, which is really great for a first grader. And beyond doing the simple reading, we then moved on to comprehension questions, which I would ask her verbally, and she would just verbalize back, and I kind of jotted some notes down. But she got all of those correct as well. Her comprehension was 100%, and I do think that has a lot to do with the constant practice she gets through using AR, because she is taking those comprehension quizzes at least twice a week, which is really great exposure. And we also focused a lot on her fluency ratings, which we can go back to the summary sheet, and if you look, she's way above those minimums, 40, 50, 80, and she's scoring well into the 100, so that's really great. The 2 sections I would really like to look at and target in on are word recognition and her passage reading. I know I've been telling you this whole time she's well above average, but I think it's really important that we continue to push her together. Especially with word recognition. These are just very high frequency words she uses in her everyday life, words she sees in her books, and I just want to constantly expose her to new words through games and even through higher reading levels, which will take me to the passage reading. I think I would like to go ahead and continue testing her to find her true reading level, so that way we know where we can push her to. And as she increases in her reading level, she'll be exposed to new words, so to me, they're kind of hand in hand, but that's what I would really like to target in on. And as far as word recognition, we'll do this test again at the end of the year, and I'm looking at word recognition specifically because it's average to see a leap of 15 words between the middle and end of first grade. So I'm hoping to see her go up to the full 90 words by the end of this year, which would be really great for her. Overall, I'm not surprised with how well she did. Madison's an amazing reader. I work with her almost every day on reading. So it's no surprise to me, and I'm sure it's no surprise to you guys because you read with her so often at home. But if there's one thing I learned, it's that she's very ready to take the challenge and keep a smile on her face. She was such a great sport. So I think we really need to work on pushing her, like I talked about. But I'm really excited to see how the rest of the year goes. So